It is recording. Welcome, everybody. Hello, hello.
Oh, you're so
Others will join as we come along, but it's nice to see you. Oh, Leanne, nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Yay. Thanks for joining us. And we got Kelly and Deb and Pam here, Madeline and Byron. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. So, we're good. I think we're good. Let's get started, shall we? All right. We've got a lot of singers in the room here and on there, which are, intimidating. But you guys probably were familiar with this music earlier in your careers than I was, right? I'm a composer and pianist, and so really didn't think much about this music until I was in a master's degree at Peabody, and somebody was like, you should go sing for this church. And I was like, I'm not a singer. And they're like, no, seriously, they're gonna pay you to sight read some awesome music. And I was like, really? Do I have to actually go to the church? And they're like, yeah. I was like, Sunday mornings? Like, yeah. All right, I need money. I'm so poor. Yeah, fine, let's do it. And now it's something I recommend to all of my students do, actually. Right? Even if you say, well, I'm not a singer, as long as you can sing. This is the basics of singing. And you want to learn, have somebody pay you to literally learn how to sight read and learn how to be a better musician. It's a fantastic thing. And of course, that goes hand in hand with Nadia Boulanger's idea that everybody should always be singing in choir. It doesn't matter your instrument, it doesn't matter if you're a pianist, a conductor, a violinist, you should be singing in choir, and you should be doing it consistently. And that's something we do in our program. I'm going to talk today, I'm not a musicologist, although I play one on TV, but I'm not an expert in terms of the genesis of some of this music and the pedigree and all of the long history of it. But I'm going to talk about it as a composer of now, who wants to show you, alls, who's listening, how this music gave us, eventually, this beautiful idea of tonality that we all now have the benefits of several hundred years of composers working it out. And I want to kind of show you the differences between the way they thought about line and harmony and the way that we think about it now. I already mentioned Nadia, right? She's got four major principles of harmony that she always discussed. And they are these. These are principles, they're not rules. German books have a lot of rules. The French books have a lot of principles. Lets them get away with a lot of crap. First principle, always four voices. What makes tonality is four voices, not three, not five. And the reason for that is very simple. When I'm in a first inversion kind of position with three notes, I'm just screwing around. Wherever I stop, and probably the lowest thing I stop on will feel like I'm done. But it's not confirmed until the fourth pitch is added. All right. Once the fourth pitch is added, we've decided now on something called doubling. We've taken one of those three pitches and we've said, okay, I'm going to add another one of those, and that's going to be more important than the other two. You have to remember that in music, and this is something I understood all the way back then too, right? Out in space, a pitch is just a pitch. It doesn't mean anything. But as soon as it's next to somebody else, or concurrently, right? They act like objects do in space and gravity, or everywhere in gravity, really, right? Where the larger and more the solid object pulls the smaller one towards it, right? And every interval has its own pull just inherently, right? So you hear this very clearly with things like sevenths. Gravity almost always pulls down. The only interval that actually pulls up is the tritone. It's the only one, which is what makes it so confounding. And we have to do a whole set of podcasts on the tritone, but we're not going to do that today. That's important to remember, right? Because in the majority of the music you're going to hear tonight is going to be in three voices. And you're going to be like, what? I see four humans. Yes, you do. But it's very rare, as we get, especially in early polyphony, to have all four voices singing at the same time and doing and contributing to the same sound. It's much more common that you have three. And when you have three, you don't have tonal music yet. Okay, principle two. What is it? Independence of line. Right? This is what makes Western music different from almost, but not all, other musics in the world, is that there was an early idea that everyone should be doing their own part. And we're not all doing one thing together. Now, it did start that way. If you want to go way back, Like if we're talking about early homophony, it would have sounded like this. We're talking like 1200-ish, as much as we know that far back, right? But as soon, when you think about the overtone series, that's the first two overtones. But as soon as you get that next one, which is always present, and you have that third, all of a sudden everything freaking changes, right? Because now it's like, whoa, hold on. Now I'm not doing what you're doing. We're not doing the exact same thing. I'm doing this and you're doing that. And the idea then comes, and polyphony, of course, means many voices, right? Okay. Third principle, and then we're going to get to some music, I promise, is minimal motion.
What?
Minimal motion. And the idea here is that the original voice, the original musical instrument is the voice, and the voice is a very small instrument when you compare it to everybody else. And you might think like, I mean, I can hear the singers thinking right now, wait, hold on, I can sing 2 octaves. I know. You guys are professionals. But I saw a study about 10 years ago. I think it was in England or maybe it was in Germany, I can't remember. They like basically tested the adult population, male and female, of a certain age, never studied music, what their singing voice range was in general. You want to take a guess what the average was?
10.
That's what I would have thought.
Like
It's more like a 7th.
Yeah.
Really?
It's less than an octave, which is insane, right? So our ears are capable of hearing thirds here, hearing them here, hearing them here, right? And again, I promise you, if I had an electronic instrument, I could play them 10 octaves higher, and you'd still hear, boom, 2 pitches, thirds. But when I get here, yeah, I still hear it. Kind of. And maybe not, right? And this, of course, again, I always say my get out of jail free card for any young theory student. If somebody asks you a theory question, they say, why does this happen? You say, the overtone series. You're right. It's not that simple, but yes, you're right. But, of course, it is correct, because every pitch has its entire set of intervals above it. Okay, so that's minimal motion, right? Because a voice doesn't need to leap an octave and a third. When you see like the height of a big Puccini aria, is it a leap of a 10th? No, it's usually like a third, or like a fourth for the tenor going, that's it, that's the big moment. It's a fourth. On the violin, it'd be whoop-de-doo, piano. But at the right range, when the tenor's singing, it's freaking awesome. So it's a small instrument, thus minimal motion. What does that mean? If a pitch doesn't have to move between point A and point B, it's not going to move. If it does, it's going to pick the smallest interval, up or down, it can find. Always. Okay. The third principle, last principle, definitely was not thought about by these old guys, but was definitely in fashion by the 19th century. And this, Rebecca Myers is really going to like this one. She's on the screen. You can see her or live right here. There she is. And the last principle is that the soprano has to be beautiful.
Yes!
See? That's right. Kelly knows. Kelly knows. And you might be like, wait, what? What the crap? Well, okay. Music is not a democratic system. Okay, it's a hierarchical system because of the way the overtone series is built from the bottom up, right? And so the most important voice is the top. The second most important voice is the bottom, and then the other two in either combination. And that's just like, I know people are like, well, what the, I know. But this is just life, because this is the physics of sound, right?
That's why sopranos get given a harder time.
Well, that's
Because
debatable.
people hear us first. They're like, ugh.
Well, let me put it this way. If I love doing experiments on non-musicians, it's like my favorite thing, because you learn a lot about, we're all dorky in our brains about this stuff, but the average person, they just like music. All right, find an adult male friend of yours that has a natural baritone range, and play them a recording of a Bach chorale, and then say, sing it back.
Sing it back?
Sing it to me, what you just heard. Like, okay, the first stuff being nervous, I'm not talking about any of that. If they do make the attempt, what line are they going to be singing?
Soprano.
The soprano. On the off chance that they have a really talented ear, maybe the bass, but probably not. And there's no way in hell they're singing the alto or the tenor. This is how sound works. It's built from the bottom up, and thus whatever's on top has to be interesting. It has to be the most interesting. Now, that's going to play out even in music that you're going to hear right now from 1550. So, first, here's the plan today, and I hope we can do this in a good amount of time. I want to our lovely choir here, which I will introduce in a second, to sing 2 English pieces and 2 Italian pieces. And we're going to go in quasi-chronological order. So the very first piece we're going to hear, super famous, Thomas Tallis, around 1550. This was written 1550, right? So, like, think about what's going on then. Like, man, well, a lot. Anyway, won't get into that. And so we're going to hear that now. Let me introduce our awesome choir. So we already know Rebecca Myers, the Rebecca Myers, as she's known in some circles.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Oh
We have
my
Maren
gosh.
Brehm right here. Everybody knows Maren. We have Dan Schwartz, our bass, and Kevin Vondrack, our tenor for the night. These people all are artists from the Crossing. They are rock star singers, and doing this is like such a treat because we get to hear the best singing the best. So, at your leisure.
Do you want to give us a pitch? Oh.
Oh,
Oh.
1 second. Late arrival. Late arrival. Late arrival. 1 second.
Benjamin, what was principle 2?
Well,
What's
what
that?
was principle 2?
Huh?
What was principle 2?
Oh, principle 2. So let's just review it real quick. First one was 4 voices, always 4 voices, right? Second one is independence of line. Everybody does their own thing. Third one, minimal motion. Fourth one, soprano has to be awesome. Oh, yeah.
Are there any more
Hey.
packets left? Or?
Yeah, there's
There you go.
yeah. You gotta find a spot. We're about to sing a little Tallis here.
Make yourself cupcake. That poop is low, but you
All right,
everyone.
so
If ye love me, keep my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another
yay! Thank you. So good. So good. Yay! You guys have a seat for
Okay.
Thank you. Isn't that great? Those are people who know how to sing this music. Whew, so good. So, this piece is pretty famous for a lot of reasons to us English speakers, right? But I just want to show you and point out a few things that might seem to you to be, run of the mill, that are actually quite out of the ordinary and go against some of the principles or reinforce the ones that we just talked about. So for this, if you have your scores, that's great. If you don't, I can share a screen and I'm going to point out a few things to you because we have the tech. Okay, there in this opening passage, which is the only time of actual homophony, right? Meaning all 4 parts are singing the same rhythm at the same time. It's the only time in the piece this ever happens. Then this is as close to tonal as you're going to get. And there's 2 things that I think Nadia would look at and say, well, that's not correct, or that's unusual, from a standard point of view of someone studying keyboard harmony. The first one occurs right off the bat in the first bar, which is here. These are all root position chords. Remember, first inversion wouldn't become a thing for a long time. So we're not, that's if you're a theory nerd and you're like, ooh, is there gonna be first inversion? No, there won't be. Until we get to 3 voices. Now, when we start, what's the tenor doing there? Why is he leaping down to the fa and back up to the do? La, fa, do. Couldn't he just stay on la? La, la, do. Yeah, that would have been minimal motion, right? So why would he do that? One, he knows that minimal motion is the principle, but of course, when you sneak around with it a little bit, you get more expressive lines, because the larger the leap, the more expressive it becomes. Now, it also, if you're a tonal music person, you would say that's a 6 chord, And what do we know about sixth chords? They can be deceptive. They can have doubled tonics. So the two Fs actually predicts in the future what would be the standard, which would be to double the tonic there. The other wild little thing is right here. Okay, again, if I gave you this bass as a keyboard harmony student and I said harmonize, you would do this. That's minimal motion. But what sucks about that? The soprano at the end. Boring.
Sounds like a hymn.
Yeah, which generally aren't written by, anyway. La, sol, fa. And so Tallis says, you know what? The soprano's gonna make a jump for it. And because of that, the poor altos and tenors are like, oh crap, I guess we gotta do something too, right? And they have to, because if they stay in their closest space, well then the chord's gonna be misdoubled and you're not gonna be able to approach the plagal cadence that comes right after. So because the soprano said, hey, I want to be cool, then we favored that rule or that principle over the principle of minimal motion. There's a conflict between these principles all the time, which is what's so interesting, how composers navigate that. When they say, wait, I don't know, I think it's more important to have minimal motion. Or in this case, nah, the minimal motion is boring, so I'm going to go up with the soprano, meaning everybody else has to be like, whoa, crap, I got to get out of the way. Especially the tenor that has to also leap up the fourth and have parallel sixth with the soprano there. This is going to start to predict activity you see in tonal music. Okay. By the way, I always go fast because I'm always conscious of time. If you have questions, anybody online or here, just shout them out. Cool. Let me show you one or two more things about this that I think might interest you. Okay. In the second section here, there's a fascinating moment where he shows you two visions of the same chord that are very different from one another. It's beat 3 right here. That B flat still holding over. And just 2 measures later, this chord here. Could you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Now, these are both first inversion chords. I said you wouldn't see any. They're not really first inversion. Don't worry about it. Nonetheless, they're both B flat chords with a D in the bass. What's different about them? Well, here you see the re doubled, and here you see the fa doubled. Now, if Nadia were here, and I'm chanting a lot of Nadia today because this is the topic is harmony, and that's what made her famous. She would tell you that doubling is not just something that gives you tonality. It gives you the idea of tonality, right? What's the difference? Not just like, oh, now we're tonal. But no, now we're in a key. And once we're in a key, that key has its own set of hierarchies. So when I double the D in the first one, the more you listen to that, don't you feel like the soprano should fall? Which it does do. Okay, now here's the second one. Now the F is doubled. Do you think that the B flat should fall? No, that's good where it is. In fact, it rises. Let me play it in context for you. You guys that have been with me a long time know that I really hate Roman numerals. I think they are reductive, if not rather useless. It's like calling a chair a chair. It's like, wow. It's insightful. Because ostensibly you'd say this whole piece is in D minor, and that's a 6-6, and then it's a 6-6 again. No, those two chords are completely different from one another. They just have the same notes in them, but they're doubled differently. And thus, we start to get a feeling of I'm moving from this key to this key, which would not have thought, would have been something you'd see this early. Cool. Last thing on this, if we go to the second half, we start the imitative entry, for which this time period is so known for, right? This is what will eventually become fugues, 200 years later-ish. Well, a little earlier than that, 160 years later. Notice the imperfection, which is the most human thing there is. I once read this book, great book by Umberto Eco, right? Nonfiction book called On Beauty. He also has one called On Ugliness. They're both really interesting to read. And the one on beauty makes the point that a lot of artists have made before, that when we see things that are perfectly symmetrical, perfectly, like mathematically symmetrical, we actually get a little freaked out, like we get a little weirded out by it. And when we see things that are just almost there, that's like the sweet spot for humans. Love it. Like, I mean, you could take, famous artwork and do this with people's faces, or like the most beautiful actresses or actors. You can see like Marilyn Monroe, she has the one little thing that's like, it's perfect. She looks so good, right? That's how we're hardwired, right? And so a lot of people, we have a mathematician in the room, so I have to be careful here, because a lot of people say music is like math, right? And I'm like, to a certain extent, but not really, right? It's about imperfection. It's about becoming close to correct, right? And that's very human. Notice the leap of a fourth to start in the tenor, imitated by the leap of the fourth in the bass, and then the alto jumps in. So this has got to be a fourth, right? In the soprano? Nope, it's a fifth. It jumps over where you expect it to be, right? And that's such a satisfying moment, right? Because when all four people do the same thing, you're like, oh, that was cool, that was cool. But it was like, you have to imagine these voices as if they're people in a conversation. So the first person goes, hey, and the other person goes, hey, and the other person goes, hey, and then the other person goes, yo, what's up, everybody? And you're like, that was the coolest one. It's like that, okay? And so that's classic Tallis right there. And
Could
later,
you play it if it was boring?
yeah, I mean, it wouldn't, I'd have to change the harmony, but I could try. Something like that.
Yeah.
That's just like you're doing the same thing over and over, right?
Boo.
Because, not to get too well, think about it. If I'm leaping from scale degree 1 to scale degree 4, which is what I'm doing here, I'm never going to be able to have a 5 chord, right? Because the scale degree 4 is not in 5. We do not have dominant sevenths in this time period, okay? So this sound that we're so used to, you're going to have to wait a long time before that actually gets invented, okay? So we can't do that. So Bach might do, but not in this time period, right? So now, I promised to show you the 3 voice, and I just want to show you that real quick before we move to the next piece. Okay, right here, at letter D, you get a long passage where the soprano takes a little break, which is always nice. And all of a sudden, you get this fascinating little passage. This is what music looked like before this time period, right? You have a lot of this. Now, as a contrapuntist, you may be like, wait, is that okay? Everybody's just moving parallel. Is that wrong? Well, first of all, it's not wrong because there are first inversion chords with the fourth on top. The French call this faux bourdon, right? And this is the idea that you take 3 voices like that and you have them all tracking down and you have one voice rising against them. Bach starts the Christmas cantata with that. And it has that. That's what these are. Right? So, it does sound like Christmas. It's a pretty cheery little Bach piece.
Christmas cantata?
No, the Christmas oratorio. Yeah, the 3rd movement, I think. Don't quote me. Anyway, I want to point out that if those fourths are reversed, they become fifths, right? In which case you would have, and that sound is way out. That's no good. We don't like that. And you can hear the difference, right? This sounds, even though we know it's 3 notes, it sounds like 2. And that's why parallel fifths are bad.
That's so weird.
That's why they're so bad, right? They're overtone refractions of each other. So because of that, like the average person is only going to hear 2 voices. Yeah. And so, in case you, yes, that's what we like to hear.
That's so weird. Like that is why people say
That's
it's
the
bad.
whing.
It's not because it's just a
No,
rule.
it's not some random thing. It's because you were losing sonority. Yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah, harmonic suit. Now, last thing I'll say about this one, real quick. As you can tell, they don't have yet the sense of choir SATB like we have now, And if you're an alto, you always love this piece because you get the last laugh, right? It ends, if you didn't notice, right, with alto having the last iteration of the theme and ending the piece on the top. Right? That would almost never happen in Baroque music. In fact, I don't think it would ever happen in Baroque music. Maybe. I can't think of a single example of Bach ever stopping on a voice crossing. But in this case, he probably thinks of the two voices as two trebles, right? And they're the same voice part. Even though one is a little bit lower than the other, they're not that different. We don't do things like that anymore. I just wanted to point this out because that, to me, screams arcane. As, by the way, does the cadence, right? The classic Renaissance cadence with no third. The third wasn't consonant to them yet. It was getting there. It was getting there. And we're going to see it become there by the time we get to the end of this today. So let's go to piece number 2, shall we?
Oh my gosh. Let's do it.
Okay, we're going to skip ahead about 50 years. And we're going to go to a student of Tallis's, Mr. William Bryd. And we're going to hear the Ave Verum Corpus. So the piece the Tallis was 1550. This is now 1600 and change. Bryd was Catholic in England at the time where that wasn't so cool. So writing these pieces in Latin was a direct no-no, and they were never performed in the churches there. They were performed like out in the woods at secret Catholic services. Yeah, there's some musicology for you. Okay, here we go. That is such a freaking stunner of a piece, isn't it?
It's very fun to sing.
Yeah, yeah. It actually does a lot of things that a lot of contemporary music does today. That some of the few things I ever say good about contemporary music. Short phrases, short little ideas, moving from key to key to key, always changing, always moving. That's how you can tell that we're getting close to tonality, right? We're moving from place to place so quickly. And almost all of it is via doubling. We're going to get into that. But the first things first, just the tradition in this time, just like you heard Tallis, is to start with the chorale, the four voices doing the exact same thing, and then break them up, right? So we do start that way. But there's a sound in here that I think you, even if you don't know what this is I'm about to talk about, that you heard it, which is, it's in measure 2. You start here, and then, whoa, what is that sound? There's something very sour about that, and it's right here. Right? This should, if this were a student of mine, I would say, where's the courtesy accidentals, idiot? Well, this pitch and this pitch are what we call a cross relation. Right? Cross relations occur when you leap away from a certain pitch. Maybe I should back up a second and just, before, maybe this will blow your mind too. There are only 7 notes in music. There are only 7. That's why we have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. There's not 12. There's not 24. There's not 88. None of that crap. There's 7. That's all there are. And each one of the 7 can be adjusted higher or lower. It could be adjusted doubly higher or doubly lower, but there are only 7. Okay? So when you have a highly charged pitch, or the technical term ficta at this time, the F sharp, leapt away from, and then so it's still hanging out there, it has not been dealt with, and then somebody else goes F natural, they go, whoa! That is one of those sounds that Bach always tries to avoid. When Bach actually does it, you know that he's like committed to this. Like, we're gonna really do this. You know, at this time period, I'm not sure they heard it. Well, I won't say they wouldn't have the terminology for it like this, but I don't know how you couldn't hear it. I mean, it's one of those things that smacks you in the face. Now, to skip to...
Well, so one thing on this
Yeah.
that I think is really intentional that Bryd does
Yeah.
is that, so in the Catholicism Anglicanism debate
Yep.
at the time, right, he's making a theological statement right there with the ficta as well.
Mhm.
Real true body.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You are 100% right.
Substantiation where the Anglicans are kind of like, yeah,
Eh.
you know. And so I think it's very deliberate.
You are right on the money, and I really appreciate that, because I'll cut to the chase here. The next time that happens is in another incredibly beautiful and precious moment, right? Which is right here at 29, when you hear. That pitch sounds so wrong, right? And notice the text, O dulcis, sweetness, right? O pie, pity, right? And that is the kind of like culmination of this piece right there. The rest of it is coda after that, and we're getting to the end. But he like, that's such a moment. And then even here, right? The bass is it the bass? Yeah, the bass gets a stab at it too there, right? Again, the courtesy accent is all in the wrong place. This one should be here, right? And so again, it's this pitch is still sitting there, right? It hasn't been dealt with. There's a rest, and then the bass comes up and just rams that B flat, and you're like, dude, wow. So that was 2 in a row,
It's my favorite note to sing.
right? Well, there you go. That's why.
That particular B flat.
That's literally why that is, you know, right?
And the crescendo.
Right, because right, it was really brutal right there, right? Because the other one at the beginning was at least an octave apart, but this one is alto and bass right next to each other, and so that really hits you, and it's like, oof. So I love it that they do the courtesy of putting the accidental here for the alto. Yeah, how about the bass, who has to blow that up? If the bass sings a B flat there, I guarantee you the alto will. All right? You don't really need that other part. Hi. We got new guests. Hey. Welcome, welcome.
Good, how are you?
Come on in, find a seat wherever you like.
If you wanna,
There's a booth.
Oh, there's also a booth.
there's a
It's a very low booth.
you can perch on the arm, you know.
We are just going through the Avivarum Corpus, the bird, and talking about what cross relations are and what they are doing here.
Oh yeah, and
Right?
anyone should feel free to get themselves wine or cheese.
Oh yeah, get wine, cheese, it's all there. Don't, whatever you like.
Cheez-Its.
And our friends are
Benjamin?
all yes.
Hey Benjamin, can you just really quickly? I knew Kevin Vondrack was giving some sort of historical context. Can you repeat what he said, because it was kind of hard to hear?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the audio.
I will paraphrase my dear friend here. So he was saying, this is a time that was a lot of strife between the Catholics and the Anglicans, right? And so writing this "O true body" on the word verum was really emphasizing the difference between the Catholicism at the time and Anglicanism. That was going away from thinking about things like the Eucharist and all that, right? The piece is called The True Body, right? Ave Verum Corpus.
Right.
What are you saying that the
Got it. Thank
So
you.
the
two
fact that the
pitches.
cross relation happens on that word.
Right.
Because
The fact that it happened on that word of true.
On that true word. Okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. Welcome, Isabel. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Hi, nice to see
Hey. Hi. You're on TV over here.
you. Nice to see you on TV. Hello.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, nice to see you.
I just
Are you-
woke up.
You're in Australia, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Thanks for waking up for us.
Wow.
Oh, that's so cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like I always feel like something really special happens at like 36 to 39, and I don't know if that's
Well,
another
it's
cross
fascinating because that was the next
situation.
thing I was going to talk about. Look at that, the good ears over here. So there's two final versions of this cross relation that we want to talk about. And these are the type of dissonances that will not make it into the Baroque. They will not stand the test of time because these composers later would be like, that's too much. We're not doing that. And they would be not just cross relations, but having two versions of the same solfege pitch at the same time, which you see first time here.
That's why.
Right? So you're sitting here on what we would now call a dominant chord, although they would not have thought of it that way. And you're going, again with the bass. That is a heck of a pitch, right? That's one thing from this time period that does not continue into the future. Like, I think the Monteverdi and company were like, that one's a little much. Like, I won't say he never does it, but by the time you get to Bach, you're not going to hear that anymore. You will not be able to leap to dissonances like that. Now, he would say, well, hold on, it's not a dissonance. And you'd be like, what? And he'd say, no, it's not a dissonance, man. Like, come on, like, we've got a ficta here that's pulling up, right? We can't do this. We're not going to do that, right? So if we're going to leap above scale degree 6, we have to do it with a natural. And there it is. You get it one final time. Just after that, 41, I think. Here we go.
It's also sort of like, how you often talk about the sort of Chopin double appoggiatura.
Yes, it is.
It's sort of like that.
Thank you.
The other way around from how Chopin would do
It totally is, right? The Chopin double appoggiatura is instead of doing, you do, which gives you that same pitch content,
Yeah.
right? But that is register specific. He would never do it here. He would do it here. Very good observation. So here it is. It might be hard to see because this F sharp in the tenor is being held over here from the measure before, right? Up here, I promise. You can barely see it right here. And there's the same idea. Again, the bass is the bass gets the fun part. I would also point out that the chord that comes after both of those times would be, again, what we would consider now a deceptive 6 chord. Notice the doubling that I was talking about earlier? Right? Same thing happens, where was the last one? Here. Right? In modern terms, this is a deceptive cadence, right? Because we have the sol doubled both times. So that's another thing that's starting to predict the tonal world to come, is that if you're going to move from 5 to 6, right, well then you have to double that tonic. There's contrapuntal reasons for it, right? One is that if you're just moving root position to root position by step, you always have a problem. You can't do this, right? And then the problem is, okay, well, if I can't do that, well then this guy's, he's not going down that leading tone. He's staying where, he's got to go up, right? So he's going to go up, and everybody else will go down. And that becomes the deceptive cadence, right? Which is where that comes from. Almost, it's kind of interesting. This is a big topic I won't get into, but I promise to touch on it. We think of tonality as like major, minor, right? And the addition of saying everything is one or the other. And that's not true at all. Major was always there. Minor is what makes tonal tonal. What brings it out of the Renaissance and into the New World, right? Where the leading tone is always, always high, right? And it must be. Because of that, you get 3 half steps in the mode rather than 2. That changes freaking everything. That right there gets you the deceptive cadence. It gets you the 2/5. It gets you all the things that make tonal harmony rich. So it's fascinating that it comes from minor, not from major.
And that's also partly why that cross relation is there, I guess.
Absolutely.
Right, with the low
Because
pitch.
it's a low pitch.
Something going down.
Exactly. And like you got to think about that for a second from a philosophical point of view, right? Major just exists. It is reflective of the overtone series, right? Minor is a human constructed built thing. It didn't just, it's not natural. Like we're adding something to the system that is not in nature, right? And that's fascinating because it shows you the progress from before and after, right? Okay. I think that's it for this piece. I'm looking at the clock and I want to keep going. So would we be interested in singing a little Victoria next?
Yeah.
Yay.
Victoria.
Okay, we're going to move back in time a little bit to, I'm not sure exactly when this piece was written. I want to say 1560s, 1570s. John, do you know?
Oof, not sure.
Oh, yeah. I think it's 1570s, I would say, for Victoria. Now we're switching over to Italian here, and not exactly Italian because Victoria, as you may know, is not Italian. He just pretended to be Italian. He was Spanish. And so you hear a little bit of Spanish flavor in this one
Why
as
did
well.
he pretend to be Italian?
Well, it was better to be Italian
Yeah.
at that time period. Okay, so as you guys like, here it is.
This is new to all of us.
Ave Maria.
Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Jesus Christus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae.
Different feel, right? Different feel. A little spicier, a little jumpier. I've always been fascinated how alive this music feels. Still to this day, when you hear it, you're like, wow, you want to move, you know. And that's not something you usually associate with the Renaissance, right? You think of that as romantic, the 20th century. But in any case, I'm not going to say a whole lot about this piece, except that as you can tell, as we kind of move into the future here, we're seeing much more four-part writing. Right, less imitative entry and more chordal writing, and using ficta now, kind of in the same way that Bryd did, now to move from place to place, rather than just confirming one place and sitting there and saying, yes, you're confirmed, right? The Tallis only had one modulation in it, and it was like this small. You move to the dominant for 1 second, and then you're, never mind, I'm out, right? Whereas this and the Bryd that we just listened to, almost every phrase ends in a different key. They're just moving so quickly and rapidly through them. That shows you that we're getting close to a sense of tonality. We're getting close. We're not there yet, but we are very close. I especially love the Sancta Maria aspect, right, of hearing these kind of double and triple ficta. And that sound right there of being in tonic key X and moving to this whole tone beneath, that's something that wouldn't come back into music for a long time. Probably until Fauré, really, and Salon, those guys, and Brahms. Brahms is like the unadulterated king of the renegade. That's a cool name. I was going to say the retrograde cadence. It'd be cool if it was called the renegade cadence. I'm going to start using that.
You should make it up.
I just did. No, Brahms has all these great moments, you know. Actually, anyway, another time. That's actually my area of expertise. I get too excited. I get to talk about Brahms. But you see what I mean about not being content to leave this and say, oh yeah, that's it. That's confirmation. No. That's just a stepping stone to get to where you want to get. And then right there, you see that non-deceptive right there, right? Which signals that, oh wait, no, we're not in that key. We are back in the home key of E with the secondary dominant even. They're getting real close to being... Now, what makes this still Renaissance? All root position. Known versions. That has not been invented yet. The group that we all know a little bit, Variant 6, just did a piece by Lejeune in their last concert, which I think was has the first inversion chord ever written in. Some people say it's in Robert White. I don't know. It is in Robert White, but I think it's better in the
We
Lejeune.
looked it up. I think Robert White is later.
Yeah. Well, then there you go.
Do you want to say what it is?
Well, I'll just play it for you. It's I won't get into it because you're not even looking at it. But it's a 5-voice motet that starts this way. There it is. So one more time. If it was all root position, it would have sounded like this. But it would have been all parallel fifths, so you couldn't do it. So what he has to do?
Oh, it sounds nicer.
And it's because of that hanging ninth on the chord. It's funny, like I could take you through the ages and show you this position. I'm getting so off topic here, but that position to me in Bach, you'll hear as part of like a sequential design. You'll hear sequence, 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 sequence. Eventually, sequence, 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 and eventually you land here. And that's only once. If you take all the counterpoint out, like I just did, that's pretty close to this. WC, right? So all these things are in there to start with. It's just the evolution of this, right? Mostly the evolution is taking out the chunks that made them and just keeping the good stuff, right?
John has
I
something
have a
to
question
say.
about the
Yeah.
first inversion thing, because people were doing faux bourdon
Yes,
all the time.
they were.
And that's like nothing but first
But
inversion.
I talked about this before you got here.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, because four baudon is almost always in 3-part,
Right.
right? It's when it's in 4 parts in first
It
inversion
has
that makes it.
the
That's got the problem.
jumping fence. Okay.
That's it, right? Because if you're in 3-voice, yeah, you just do it, right? But as soon as you add that 4th voice, you never see inverted chords in the Renaissance, with rare exceptions. So, good. All right. What else did I want to say? Oh, should I actually show you that Bach example instead of just hacking through it? I can do that in 2 seconds.
Okay.
I promise. Because it's worth seeing how these things evolve over time, I think, you know? I wasn't planning on doing Bach today, but it's never a bad idea when you do it. Right?
Yeah.
I actually have a master Bach player, right? I should have you play this. But
Started on my mind.
Too late.
yeah, we have John Walls here, who is like a rock star Bach player. So now I'm feeling self-conscious. I'm gonna play for you.
You're like, I don't know what.
The piano's for drinks.
Yeah. I'm gonna play you, and this might sound strange, but my favorite sequence in all the well-tempered clavier. My favorite sequence. And you know what I mean, sequence, I'm using the musical term, an actual harmonic sequence. And it comes right here, starting here. Now, again, I'm just trying to show you that these things that happened in the past still happen now, right? When the large majority of Renaissance music is in 3 parts, and when they go to 4, it's a thing. In a 4-part fugue in the Baroque, almost all the sequences will be a voice taken out. So it'll just, if it's a 4-voice fugue, it'll be 3. And this makes sense because then the 4th voice can come back in and be the deciding, voice in the middle entry. So this is an extremely rare sequence here in which Bach keeps all 4 voices active. It's the only one in all of Book 1. So you have a cadence here. That is just sexy as hell, I'm sorry. And it's because it's got all 4 voices in that you end up having these fascinating little arrivals, right? I want to point out to you, there's 3 chords in the cell, which is also super unusual. Sequences are usually 2 chords, right? But there's 3 in here, right? And they're 1, 2, 3 in each measure. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So let me just play downbeats without all the counterpoint in between. So later composers like Debussy come along and go, I don't need all that freaking counterpoint in between. I'm just take the sexiest bits, right? I'm just going to take this. And make it. There you go. All right. So everybody always says to me like, how do you explain if you don't like parallel fish so much? Why are you explaining Debussy doing all the parallels? It's like it's not that, right? It's not what it is. What he's actually doing is taking out all the counterpoint in between and going from place to place, much like Stravinsky going from block to block to block, right? Without the intervening crap. Now, I happen to like the intervening crap, but you can understand that that was new and fresh and different. And I love that you start to see those sonorities in music as far back as freaking 1570. Right? So there's a continuity there. One more historical thing, and then we're going to end this with, I think, the masterpiece of this 4-part set. You got to remember that composers like Bach would have known a little bit about Palestrina and some of the Renaissance masters, but not nearly as much as we know now. And then the composers after Bach, like Mozart, Beethoven, and then the early Romantics, they wouldn't have known about this music at all. Right? Since I was talking about Debussy, I'll tell you a story, which is really funny. Debussy, a avowed atheist, real hardcore atheist, convinced his friends that they needed to go to Notre Dame every Sunday. And his friends were like, have you lost your freaking mind? He's like, dude, they are playing this music by this dude called Palestrina, and you have to hear it. And so the compromise was, if you go into a French cathedral, they don't have pews, right? They just have like chairs that you can pick up and move. So they would all go in together, probably very drunk from the night before. They would take the chairs and turn them around so they had their backs to the altar, and they would listen to the Palestrina, and then they turn the chair around and walk out. And you can imagine that the Catholics were not too happy about that, but there was nothing they could really do about it. So that just goes to show you, Debussy, when he first heard this, was just like, holy hell, this is insane, you know, and wondered why everybody wasn't studying this. Well, that's kind of the point of today. So I'm not going to comment on the Palestrina. I'm just going to go out with it because it needs no, it really doesn't need much explanation. To me, this piece, the Sicut Cervus, probably the most famous piece we're going to do today, is like the masterwork of the Renaissance. I mean, in terms of short forms. Like, if you're going to go masses and larger forms, we could talk about a few other pieces. But if you're going to go short motet, Sicut Cervus is a 100% piece. And when I say that, you have to know what I mean. Like the Well-Tempered C major is a 100% piece. It is perfect. There are no flaws. It's not a single thing you'd want to change. And to me, this falls into that category.
Should we have a little, like, if anyone wants to sing? they can?
Oh yeah, if you want to sing along, be my guest. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like, seriously.
Sing along.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're here.
Yeah, just join us. If you
Feel free to join in as you like.
And
So.
online, just mute yourself.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
mute yourself.
Okay, here we go.
Oh,
Just giving you a little color.
thank you for that context.
Sicut cervus desiderat
Yeah, it's real pretty.
Yay! Not a single accidental.
It's
Amazing.
just so satisfying to sing.
It is. It is.
It's so good.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to especially thank our choir, Rebecca, Maren, Kevin, and Dan. Yay! Yay! You look over there. We have a lot of cameras. And I want to thank everybody that was here online with us. I really appreciate it, especially Isabel getting up in the super early. And Madeline, who you just look like a boss, whatever you're doing right now. Like, just killing it.
It's prescription sunglasses. They're a lifesaver.
And Kelly and Leanne, thank you so much for joining us. And Deb and Pam, really appreciate you guys being here. And of course, thanks all y'all also for being here and enjoying it. So we're going to be back probably with a fall version of this, probably in like October.
You know what I think? I think that you should take requests
Oh, I'd totally take requests.
next Salon.
Yes, you should.
Yeah, if you've got any ideas that you'd like to hear,
The music of David Lang.
that's not going to happen. But
It'll be real simple.
yeah, it'll take about 30 seconds. Anyway, shots fired. Shots fired. Well, again, thank you all so much for being here, and we'll be in touch about next time.
Yay!
Bye, everyone.
Okay, don't send that.